Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Hey y'all, welcome back to At the Table Podcast, a virtual table where we discuss all things young adulting. My name is Fikayo, and thank you so much for having me in your ears. You guys, I'm so excited for this episode. I'm going to be reviewing a book or just talking through a book that I read months ago, but it just would not leave me alone, and I just had to come on here and talk about it. And this book is called The Other Significant Others, and it says Reimagining Life with Friendship at the Center. And the author is Raina Cohen. I hope I'm saying that correctly, but this book really changed my perspective on friendship, and I'm really excited to be able to talk through it in this episode today. But before I begin, I do want to say, if you are not a deep thinker, this episode is not for you. This episode is not for you. But if you are a deep thinker and you like to hold different perspectives, come, let's sit, let's talk. So, where do I begin? I have not scripted anything, so I'm really excited to say, what I say and hear my train of thought as I'm speaking. But for the last 3 years, I think I have gone on this really deep exploration of friendship simply because, I'm just not good at it. I've spoken about this over and over on this podcast, but I'm really not good at friendship. And it has started like way before, like when I was younger. My parents weren't really advocates of friendship. And it was just simply because, they were immigrants and they were throwing their children into a society they didn't know anything about. So they were wary, about the friends we would make and the manners that we would take on. And it was more of a protection thing, which looking back now, I completely understand. But nevertheless, it still left me with some deficiencies, specifically as it pertains to making friends and keeping friends and cultivating that specific friendship relationship. I don't think it was up until a few years ago that I really even understand the gravity of what friendship is and what it can be. I remember the first time I was like, oh crap, like this friendship thing is real, is when I was listening to a podcast. I'm pretty sure it was one of Sarah Jake's podcasts, and she had a guest come on, and the guest was speaking about how she had mourned a friendship. And I think that was the first time I ever understood that, like, what? Like, you could mourn a friendship? Like, you could platonically love someone to the extent in which you mourn them leaving you? Like, the concept of that idea was so foreign to me. And it was just so strange to me. So ever since then, I have been like kind of just looking into friendship, and not only like establishing friendships in my own life. That's the hard part, okay? But more so understanding the concepts of friendship. And that's what led me to this book. Well, actually, let's even take a step back. And then another way that I had really experienced friendship was in Grey's Anatomy. And it was Meredith and Christina's friendship. And I had fallen in love with their friendship. I had fallen in love with how close they were. I had fallen in love with just their relationship, the intimacy that they had, although it was non-sexual, of course, but just the closeness that they had, the vulnerability that they shared, how they sometimes just seemed to just know one another. I had loved that, and I had wanted that for myself, someone who literally feels like is doing life with me, an extension of myself, which is weird, I think, in this generation, but a friendship that even through fights, even through disagreements, even through arguments, they were still there for one another. There's so much so that when Meredith was sad, Christina would come into bed with her and just hold her. I just would always think that was so beautiful. That was so beautiful and so intimate, and it was something that I had always wanted. But anyway, a few months ago, I had found this book, and was reading it at first, but then after a while, I just couldn't read it anymore because life started getting busy, but I started listening to it through audiobook, and it was just so good. This book is essentially about the author and her relationship with her platonic friend, right? And then she also gathers a whole bunch of stories from other platonic friends and just dives deep into the relationship. And not necessarily is it like scientific, because when I think of dive deep, I'm thinking scientific, like this and this and this and this and this was how I made this connection and that connection. No, it was simply just sharing the relationship with us, like the extent in which their platonic friendship reached, and also like what it meant for each person. And I loved this book. I loved this book, and I loved the things that she had to say about these platonic friendships. And let me even define these platonic friendships while we're here, but she defines it as people who live side by side, like friends who have decided to become we. That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And she starts off the book with this beautiful quote, and it says that we do not only belong to ourselves. And I just think that is so beautiful, and it's so true. And I tell my sisters this all the time, like, you're not just yours, you're mine as well, your mom's as well, you're your friends as well, because like I'm surviving by you. And in as much as maybe that might sound selfish or like strange, it's true though. Like, I survive by my sisters, you know, so them being happy in this world, them doing well, them being happy, like that weighs on me as well. If they're not happy in a way and in a sense, like it affects me as well, because I won't be happy, you know, I won't be settled. So no, like you, at least for my sisters, like, no, you are not just you, like you do not just belong to you, you belong to me as well, and I belong to you in the same exact sense, and we should look after each other that way. Okay, so let's go all the way back again, or let's go where we are is where we need to be. I remember a few years ago there's this concept that, especially with my friends, and I'm not saying that I don't have friends, like I need to actually reiterate that I have amazing great people in my lives that I am in love with, absolutely in love with. They just all don't happen to be like super close. And they all know this. They're not super close. Even in this book, she was talking about her relationship with M, and they literally live like a block from one another. Like, that's how close I mean. Not necessarily in the same state. I mean, like, I want to be having a bad day, and I don't want to be alone and be able to come into your house and lay on your bed, you know? And those are this, if I'm speaking about friendship, and in any context of which I'm speaking about like a friendship in which I'm lacking, it's that specific kind of friendship. Not that I don't have friends, not saying that I don't have people I talk to, you know. But going back again, that quote that she said, we do not simply belong to ourselves. I remember like whenever I travel or something, or I go somewhere, I'm always usually kind of sort of intentional to make sure that I let my friends know, because like they should know. There's this Yoruba quote that I would say in my head, like whenever like I'm doing something, right? But what is it? Oh my gosh. Jen suffer I want to name me. So let me tell the people who own me, or let me tell the people who own me. And that's how I see my friends as well. Like, especially when you're a close friend to me, I do believe that to some degree, you do have a responsibility over me. And to some degree as well, I have a responsibility over you and what you're doing. I should know when you're traveling. I'm responsible for you. I don't want to ever say, where is so-and-so? And I don't know where they are, you know? I don't want someone to be able to be like, oh, you should check on so-and-so. Oh, no, so-and-so. And I should have like spoken, and I should have known that so-and-so was having this issue or situation, you know? That's how I kind of see it with friends. Personally, I think that to some degree we do own each other, and that we should make sure that we take care of each other accordingly. Now, she also brought up this really cool, like, so her book is scattered with different like stories and different statistics, because she wasn't gonna like obviously just write a book, but she has like different statistics. She has different statistics. She has different like people who have spoken to or about this specific kind of friendship. And I had noted here that it's interesting. Doctors who work with older people, they said that actually it's more often for friends, long time committed friends, to be with an elderly or dying person more than their spouse or family. And I just thought that was so interesting. I wrote it down. What else did I write down? It's interesting. In this book as well, she kind of questions, right? Whether the most important person and relationship that a person has in their life should be their romantic partner. And I really, really loved the fact that she gave space for us to be able to question that, because before this book, it wasn't something that I ever even thought about. She was talking about how, like, yeah, at weddings they're like, hold your best friend, but your best friend probably even shouldn't be your husband, maybe, or your wife, maybe, because like she just spoke about how we expect a lot from our romantic relationships, and we don't expect enough from our actual friendships. So like if someone is your best friend, your boyfriend, your husband, your everything, it makes you and that relationship so vulnerable. And I liked that exploration, because I've seen this in romantic relationships that I've had, right? Where I have completely poured everything in all of my social interactions, all of my expectations in life into a person who simply just, they weren't that person, And that's another exploration that she has in the book as well, about how female friendships are so important, because that is what we lean on to be feminine. And I loved that, because quite frankly, for the fact that you may not find all of someone in a person does not mean that that person isn't good for you. It's just you're putting too much weight on them, weight that they shouldn't be carrying. And I think that's important for us to realize, or maybe not. I have no idea. Someone tell me later. I don't know. I mean, it's only time that can let me know, but I'm not sure if you're supposed to put all of everything into one person, especially a romantic partner, especially someone who is of the opposite sex, because they don't feel the way you do. They don't understand the way you do. And I think that social media now encourages that, for us to pour all of everything into one person, especially a romantic partner. And I just don't think it's supposed to be like that. And I'd been having these thoughts prior to reading this book, but it validated a part of me, or it validated some thoughts I had before reading this book, as to how I would want to structure my life and my relationships, both platonic and also like intimate. What else did she say? Oh my gosh. So in the book as well, she had different stories, as I had mentioned, but there was one story about adults who raise kids together. And I just thought that was beautiful. So in the book, right, there was, I don't want to spoil it, but there was these two female friends. One friend was unmarried. The other one, her spouse had died. And then she had, I believe, like a sick kid or so. Or she had gotten sick. I don't really remember. Again, I've been reading this book for a stretch of months. But someone had gotten sick, and then the friend had really started like picking up the role. So I think that she had gotten sick, but she had a kid. Ooh. The friend had started to go and pick up the kid from school, and like was on the contact sheets for the emergency. And I just thought that was beautiful as well. I do hope to see the day where I am leading on my friends like that as well. where I even feel like I have permission to be able to lean on my friends as heavily as that, because that is just so beautiful. Like, a big problem that I believe that we're having in the Western world is that we're so individualistic, right? And in Nigeria, one thing I continually loved is that spirit of community. And that's why I don't want my sisters to move too far away. That's why I want to start pouring more intentionally into my friendships, because I want my kids to feel surrounded by people. I don't want there to be a draft of loneliness anywhere, or a draft of just something, like a draft of them not having enough people. I want them to feel surrounded by love. So I just think that was just another thing that I wrote down, and I just thought that was so nice. Like, that was beautiful. Oh, she spoke about how marriage is a status symbol. That was interesting. She spoke about how, yeah, I said this already, when we channel all of our intimate needs into one person, it makes us more vulnerable. How we can't really be, or how fair is it to ask one person to be all the things? We weaken friendships by expecting little from them, and we expect too much from our significant others. And she said that as well. I've said that as well. Building life with friends. I think that the idea and the notion of that is just so beautiful. It's so intimate to be able to build a life with friends. And I think that's what we're supposed to be doing. Oh, another thing, she questioned some certain things as well. And she said, is sex essential for a partnership? And I thought that was interesting. She spoke in the book about how because of sex, we have I don't want to say villainized, because I don't think that's the word, but because of sex, we've taken the purity out of deep relationships. And then she makes us wonder, does sex make a relationship deep? Is it possible to be in a relationship and be very, very close, but not have sex? And what does sex do to a relationship? I think these are all questions that are really, really great. And I think that there are thoughts and ideas that come with these questions that should be explored, even as a young adult, even as someone who is navigating their life and navigating, what they're doing with their lives, understanding how these different friendship dynamics have an impact on us. Oh my gosh. And then she did a really great thing where she kind of pulled up historical records, and she spoke about sworn brotherhood. So she pulled up historical records, and historical records based essentially on places in the past where we've seen these type of platonic, really, really strong relationships. And she spoke about sworn brotherhoods, and sworn brotherhoods apparently were a really big thing at some point, and apparently they did very well. Apparently, I don't know, and they were just really, 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 really close male and female friends. Another really cool example that she used that I really was fascinated with was David and Jonathan. And I don't assume that everyone on here is Christian, but maybe you know about David and Jonathan. I remember when I was reading the Bible very, very early on, some people would make references to whether David and Jonathan were actually if they were gay, if they were together. And although the Bible never alluded to that, so of course we can't make an inference, I believe this is a type of friendship that David and Jonathan had. They had a very, very, very close friendship where they loved each other, but I may assume it wasn't sexual, but they loved each other. They also, in the historical records, are where she was talking about places before and times before that have shown these type of relationships. She mentioned the Boston marriages. I've never heard of this, but she said that it was pairs of women who lived lives together and supported one another. So I don't know. I don't know. I've never heard of it, but I just thought it was really cool. how there are historical records of friendships that have surpassed like just standard friendships, right? As we know it now, or as I know it, I should say. And that never really entered the sexual phase. Or they weren't like romantic, but they were really, really close. But that's all the notes that I have. So now I'm going to talk from my thoughts and why I brought this to the podcast. So as I've said before, friendship has been something that I have constantly been exploring, and it's a concept that I'm trying to get a better grasp on, and one day be able to properly implement it in my life. And I think that it is just so interesting how important how important these things in our lives are, especially as young adults. As we are growing into the world, I do think it is important for us to understand the things that are important and the things that are not important. And it seems like friendship is very, very, very important. And it's something that I'm learning, but I will still continue to learn, and I will continue to implement in my life. And although I know that this episode was just like a brain dump, I hope that you got something from it. I hope that maybe you might even pick up the book. Maybe you might look at your friends a little differently. Maybe you pull someone in a little closer. Because I will. And I don't know, this book has also opened me up to possibilities of what friendship can look like for me. That it doesn't always have to be far or distant. It almost gives me permission to be able to pull people close and get to know me better, to be more intimate, to love on people harder, to just really experience love. And I love that. I love that this book let me do that. I love that this book showed me, especially as someone who struggles with this, a different dimension of love and friendship and what is possible. I really, really hope that one day I get my Meredith. I'm Christina, but I'm looking for my Meredith. And I hope that we literally barge into each other's houses or apartments, and she holds me when I'm crying, and I hold her when she's crying, and we have Sunday brunch together, and she understands my introversion as much as I understand her and her nuances and quirks. And I am really, really, really excited for that day. Yeah. I think that's it for this episode. I'm really happy that I was able to talk about this book because it has been gnawing on my spirit. It's been gnawing on my heart. And I'm happy to be able to bring you guys this beautiful book as well. Okay, I think that's it. What do I say? Please rate this episode. It means the world to me. Follow us on our Instagram. And laugh really loud and pray all the time. Bye.